This is New England Newsmakers with Sarah Zapp.
Welcome to New England Newsmakers. We are inside the one and only U.S. Coast Guard Academy here in New London, Connecticut. It is the smallest of the 5 military branches. It is the only academy based here in New England. Throughout the show, you're going to hear from some of these cadets. How do they train these elite men and women? Plus, what the Coast Guard is all about. As the lead agency in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard uniquely blends military, humanitarian, and civil law enforcement capabilities. They pack a big punch for being a small group. They're only slightly larger in number than New York City's police department. Despite its small operational size, it was the Coast Guard who had a record drug bust of 40,000 pounds of cocaine. They seized it off the Central American coast with an estimated street value of nearly $500 million. It's just part of the job. Captain Dan Burbank, an instructor at the Academy who has served in search and rescue and as a NASA astronaut, had this to say.
Just like the headlines you read about in Katrina, for myself personally, it makes you proud. It makes you proud about what we're doing. It's something I think is real important for our youth to, remove the threat of drugs that presents to them, to remove those from the street. And if we can stop that and stop as many of those from, shipments from arriving in the States, I think it's really, really important. And again, just like Katrina, seeing a major search and rescue kind of a case like that where thousands of people are being rescued, for myself, again, it makes you real proud to, proud for our service, proud for the people, young men and women that are out there doing those missions.
They're also rich in tradition. The Coast Guard is America's longest continuously operating maritime service, established in 1790 under Alexander Hamilton as a seagoing military service that enforced customs and navigation laws and made inspections of inbound ships. In 1876, the Coast Guard started an officer training school on the schooner Dobbin with a class of only 9 cadets. The Academy was later moved to a land-based operation in 1910 at Fort Trumbull in New London and relocated to its present location on the banks of the Thames River in 1932.
Well, the Coast Guard certainly has a very, very important role in times of war, and we've got certainly a very, very important defense aspect of what we do. But the Coast Guard historically, and one of our core missions, and something I think will always be the most important thing I think for the Coast Guard to do, is to ensure that people and property are safe on the high seas. So search and rescue is a really important aspect of what we do.
Today's cadets go through a prestigious and demanding 4-year undergraduate education designed to transform these young men and women into leaders. Afterwards, they give at least 5 years of service as a Coast Guard officer.
We want to basically be able to produce fleet-ready Coast Guard officers that are now commissioned officers ready to step aboard a ship and do all the things you'd expect of a junior officer that's going to do all the missions that the Coast Guard does, be it search and rescue, be it defending the ports and taking care of homeland security.
Here they uniquely blend the academic rigors with physical demands and top it off with an officership program.
We do a lot of other things to basically ensure that the waterways are safe. But all of the training that goes into that to basically produce cadets that understand all about shipboard life and ship handling and that aspect of it, that goes on here. In addition to, we want to be able to produce, cadets that have an education, an undergraduate education equivalent to anything else at any other school that you'd have here in the United States.
Coming up, your inside look into how today's cadets are trained. Welcome back to your inside look at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. Many Coast Guard cadets will serve his or her first 2 years after graduating aboard a Coast Guard cutter. And one way the Academy prepares them is aboard a computerized ship simulator, where 1 hour is equivalent to 6 hours of training at sea. Cadets here learn to control and navigate a virtual cutter in a team-based environment, complete with distractions of all shapes and sizes.
Tanker in the north, off-road, transport. This is Coast Guard Cutter Yeaton. What are your intentions, over?
Unlike most civilian colleges, school here goes on year-round, and summers are for getting out of the classroom and into the action. For some, the ultimate summer experience happens aboard the Eagle, where every cadet spends 5 weeks as a crew member. Other programs integrate classroom instruction with real-world assignments, allowing cadets to apply theoretical concepts of leadership into everyday shipboard life. Along with fleet training and an education in the nautical sciences, each cadet pursues a 4-year Bachelor of Science degree.
Joining me now is Professor Todd Taylor, telling us a little bit about what these students are learning. What are we seeing here today in terms of what today's cadets actually learn when they come to the Coast Guard?
This is a combined classroom and laboratory space where the students learn about ship design, shipbuilding. This is a combination right now of both juniors, what we call second-class cadets, and seniors, first-class cadets. And the juniors are learning the basics of ship design in terms of ship strength, hydrodynamics, the motion of a ship in waves, and so on. The seniors then carry on in each one of these individual cubicles you have here in a year-long, team-based, clean sheet of paper design of a Coast Guard ship.
So this model right here is kind of what they're learning to build and how to put together.
This model they constructed in January, about halfway through their ship design, and what they do is they take the model, they take the ship design that they've designed on the screen in the laboratory, they take it upstairs and they cut it out of foam, shape it to the exact dimensions that they had on the screen, get it ready, put it into our 110-foot long towing tank, pull it through the towing tank, and through a series of mathematical maneuvers, turn it into the full-scale horsepower for the 420-foot ship that this represents.
It sounds so complicated.
Well, it's complicated if you just jump in, but for these students who have come through a 4-year progression of engineering,
right,
it's not complicated because everything builds.
So as we walk down here and see some of the other students, explain to me, there are 8 different majors. Now there's also an academic part, but what about more of the officership and physical aspect to what goes into training today's cadets?
Naval architecture and marine engineering is one of the 8 majors, but you're right, the students also spend a significant amount of time down at the athletic facilities each day. There's an athletic period that they take part in. There's a great number of intercollegiate athletic teams. We have a huge percentage of students that participate in intercollegiate athletics. But also, they also have, as you pointed out, the professional development, some people call it the military side of the house, the officership part of their experience here at the Coast Guard Academy. There's really 3 segments to it, and they're all very, very important.
So when we see these, obviously there's classroom time and a lot of computer time. Do they spend, you know, the typical Monday through Friday in classes? Is that how the training works?
They do, but of course here at the Academy, because the students have to take a lot of extra professional development and athletic and so on courses that are required. That makes it different than a typical college experience. These students are very busy, they're very time crunched, and so what that does is it builds them up for a real dependence upon strong time management, and they learn leadership, they learn teamwork, all as part of it.
All right, as we continue walking down here, so this is a 4-year program. During this sort of time period, you choose one of the 8 majors, and then where do you go from here? I mean, how do you use this degree and what they're being taught?
The different degrees on campus that the students choose from, they certainly do, at least in a rough sense, associate with some of the Coast Guard typical career paths that exist. For example, these students, the typical career path for them is within the naval engineering career path or within what we might call the marine safety or prevention and response career paths within the Coast Guard. Their education that they get here on ship design, ship stability, they use that directly in their careers in the Coast Guard.
How competitive and tough is this program?
This program, certainly the students that are in the program, they will tell you, and if we ask you, if we ask them, they will tell you. They work very, very hard, but in general, each year when the students graduate, they shake your hand and they say, boy, that was probably the toughest thing I ever did, but I'm real glad I did it.
I think that it's a lot harder than other colleges for many reasons, combining the military aspect, academic aspect, and athletic, as well as trying to maintain your personal life and understand all that.
Obviously, if you ask some of the juniors or sophomores, it's probably one of the biggest challenges that they've ever faced. But what's great is you have people here next to you, all the other students, that really help you through it.
It's a small knit group here, so the 14 of us in my major this year with our three or four faculty who really care about us and work with us and for us, that as well as the experience that we gain over the summer really contributes to what we're doing here. And but it takes hours and hours and a lot of trying to wrap your brain around engineering, and a lot of it is very intense, but you learn a lot and it changes you too.
And coming up, we're going to take a look at what is cadet life like. Stay with us.
It has all been worth it.
I know what I'm capable of now.
I love the Coast Guard.
This is your inside look into cadet life here at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and these are the latest Coast Guard cadets to make it through a rigorous 4-year academic, physical, and officership-oriented program.
It's definitely taught me a lot about leadership and teamwork, working with others, and just to be serious and dedicated and work hard, but also to I've also been able to go out and meet a lot of people and travel the world, actually, and it's just been a great experience that I probably wouldn't have had at other places.
Each school year, there are about 950 cadets enrolled at the Academy, and when they first get here, most are fresh out of high school.
I know that I can do a lot more than when I was in high school. It was a lot different than your parents. You always had your parents to rely on, and here, from reporting in day, you don't have them anymore. And so these last 4 years have just really helped me grow, and I know that I'm capable of much more now, that whatever the fleet throws at me next year, I'm sure I can handle it.
Roughly 1/3 of the graduating class is women. Jana McCarran of Massachusetts is one of the highest-ranking cadets.
I didn't know what the percentage was or anything, but I knew that it was a place I wanted to try, and it would be hard, but the percentage didn't matter to me. I applied thinking, why not? It's an hour and a half from my house. It's free education.
As part of her senior project, McCarran and her team developed a challenging obstacle course.
You all have the highest number of women graduates ever, with 78.
All right. Don't let these smiling faces fool you. This group has worked hard and overcome a lot of challenges that come with signing on board.
And it's obviously a challenge because the Academy is only a third percentage women, but I think if they've done a good job integrating women into the cadet corps.
Just being far away from home, far away from family, and it's tough, but everyone's real close here. The environment here just makes you get really close friends, and so that really helped me get through it.
As an international, the biggest challenge to me was just adapting to the culture. But once I got over that whole feat, then pretty much down the hill was just the academics. The academics is the biggest jump, but everything else was fun. It was a great experience. America's just a great place to be. I just gotta say that, coming from St. Vincent.
I had a girlfriend when I first came, and I think that was definitely the roughest part of the Academy experience.
I think the biggest challenge was to get accustomed to the military life. It was a little easy because my father was in the Coast Guard, but it was a really big change from going from civilian life to military life.
Cadets today are definitely a different breed. Just ask Assistant Commandant of Cadets, Commander John Fitzgerald.
Compared to 20 years ago, I think the cadets today are much more technically savvy. They're smarter. They have a sense of more involvement in the community, and they're much more willing to try things and get involved in things. And it's a pleasure to deal with them. And this is my first year here, and it's been a real pleasure to deal with all of them. They've been fantastic, and I think they're the cream of the crop.
I graduated in 1981, and I'm obviously biased, but I think we get fantastic students. Particularly in this generation, they're very concerned about serving. When they talk about patriotism here, it isn't just a nice thing that they say. They're serious. They're serious about service. They're serious about their country, and they're serious about what it is they're going to be doing as officers. They're great students, and I love them.
The Coast Guard, a small service with a big mission. Graduates go directly to positions of leadership as members of one of the most adventurous and rewarding organizations in the world. Stay with New England Newsmakers for a front row seat at graduation. If you missed an episode of New England Newsmakers, you can catch it on demand. Go to Channel 1 on your cable box, go to Get Local, click on CN8, click on More. There you'll find the last 2 New England Newsmakers shows. Watch them as you please, all compliments of Comcast on demand. We're wrapping up our look inside the U.S. Coast Guard Academy here in New London, Connecticut, with a look at the end that's really just the beginning, graduation time.
Your teachers are proud, your parents are thrilled, and your commander-in-chief is grateful for your devotion to duty. Congratulations to you all.
With a presidential welcome, 228 members of the United States Coast Guard Academy class of 2007 welcomed their commencement day. This is the second largest class in Academy history, including 77 women. They got their Bachelor of Science degrees to begin their commissions as ensigns in the U.S. Coast Guard.
That I shall support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
These students, I'm so proud to see them cross the stage because they know stuff that's important to the Coast Guard. And it's just a wonderful thing to know that they're joining the Coast Guard and they're going to have the skills to help repair ships, take care of ships, operate ships, and perform the Coast Guard missions.
Back in June of 2003, 400 appointments from across the U.S. and 3 other countries started their Coast Guard careers with Swab Summer.
4 years ago, we arrived at the archways of Chase Hall, a haphazard collection of pieces from across the nation and world, wondering if we had taken a step in the right direction or if the decision to come would amount to nothing more than a vacation to and from the sea town of New London, Connecticut.
Now, 4 years later, the future ensigns participated in what Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Thad Allen described as manners of the profession, the graduation ceremony rich with military tradition.
Transitions in life are always significant, but in the military they are honored and preserved so that we're able to pass down through generations a sense of service, devotion to duty, and country because of the uniform we wear and because those who wore the uniform before us. This is an intergenerational transfer of accountability.
Distinguished Cadet number 1 in the class, Mark Mares of Pasadena, California, delivered the cadet commencement address.
Knowing how many intelligent and talented people formed the class of 2007, I feel honored to have the opportunity to speak today.
One of the big highlights of the day was President George W. Bush himself, who addressed the graduates.
Ladies and gentlemen, our Commander-in-Chief and the President of the United States, George W. Bush.